Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific, our third episode for 2024. And I am with someone, a familiar face that you might remember from last year, Lola. Hello, Lola. How are you?
Hi, Letitia.
Great to have you back. Now, it's been
Yes.
1 year since I interviewed you around your husband cheating on you. Now, I remember just posting that interview up and I walked away, and then I think I came back and thought, heck, the whole world seemed to be watching it. I think in one night we had 60,000 views or something crazy like that, because this is a huge issue. It's a big issue right here in Australia, but seems to be more so across the Pacific as well. I mean, everywhere. But just because everyone's doing it doesn't make it right, and it
Yeah.
causes a huge amount of harm, and that's why you're speaking up. We'll get to that in a second. So I just want to give a bit of a recap. If you haven't watched my interview from last year with Lola, it was February 1st, so you can scroll back on my Facebook or on the podcast and have a look. But just a quick recap. Her story is that she was married to a man for 15 years who cheated on her. He was having an affair with another woman. They had 3 children. You saw the signs before you got married. He was cheating on you before then.
Yeah.
You'd already had a child, and I think you kind of hoped for the best. And you got married and found a faith. You know, you're growing closer to Jesus, and like we're taught, you were really trying to keep your marriage together. You're trying to fight for that, do all you could, but eventually it just got too much. And since our last interview, you have divorced him because he was not willing to change. And God doesn't expect us to live in a marriage with a man and all his lovers. We make a covenant before God, one man, one woman. So that's kind of a bit of the backstory.
Yeah.
I got that correct? Anything else? Yeah.
Definitely.
So maybe just share with us why are you so passionate about speaking
Yeah.
up?
Yeah. So before I start, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for doing that first interview, because it opened so many doors for so many people that were hurting, especially women. So thank you for this platform and for helping us women be able to speak on this platform to help others. And before, when we discussed last year, you followed up twice with me to do the interview, and I just wasn't ready. Even though I did that first interview, I just wasn't ready mentally, and I'll talk about it why I wasn't ready. And then last year, towards the end of last year, and then when I told you, no, I can do the interview now, because of the feedback that women were still watching the interview, and they were just thanking me for having the courage to speak up. And so before I actually start on what I want to talk about, I just want to say thank you to all the women and men that were caught in adulterous relationships and pulled out. So they were having affairs with married men or married women, and they just realized it's not right, it's not the path to go, and they pulled out. I just want to say, if you meant that, from a repentive heart, God's going to honor you for not ruining a marriage and family. And why I'm so passionate about it is because, the hurt and pain someone goes through. But while I was still in the marriage, even though I was hurt and going through all this pain, I think I was in denial too. Because like what you said before, I was a believer and I was believing for the impossible to happen, because that's what you believe for a non-believer. You want them to be saved. And I think that's why I hung on to that marriage, because all I knew was like, God's going to change him. God's going to use him to testify of, God's work. And that's why I stayed as long as I could. But then it got to extent where it was just too much. And actually, I didn't do the divorce. My husband actually did the divorce. And for me, that's a big thing, because I know how, sorry, my ex-husband, I know how my ex-husband is. And for him to do it, I think that was, I was better off, because if I did the divorce, he would use it against me. So in one way, I'm glad he did the divorce and not me. And why I'm passionate about it, because what it's doing to people. And, we don't really say it out loud, but infidelity, adultery, it's actually abuse. And the scary thing about this abuse, it's not only one abuser, there's 2. Whoever gets involved with a married man automatically becomes an abuser. And I think if we tell people that, when you date a married man, you actually become an abuser to that has that person's wife or that person's husband. So, this is encouragement. If you're dating a married man right now, I'll just encourage you, just don't go down that path. So apart from ruining the marriage, ruin a soul like me, the children, the children are the ones that are victims to all of this as well. And I can testify to this. Kids are really good at hiding pain. And not only that, they're good at lying about the pain. And this is what I experienced with my eldest son. So when we had the divorce last year, and then, the conversations were going on, he actually went through a stage where he was just heartbroken. And then I found out he has been hurting since he found out that the dad had another woman on the side and had children outside marriage. So he's been hurting. And when I used to check on him, he never showed pain because he just continued with life. And it was not till last year where he just actually said it out loud. And so good, it was a good moment for us to just open up a little bit. But I still can't get everything out of him. He's an adult now, so I've offered him therapy. The company I work for actually offers families therapies. So it's not only myself, my children are included in that therapy sessions. So I've offered it to him. He's just not ready to go to one. For my girls,
yeah. We'll come back to the children in a minute.
Yeah.
There's a lot more we want to say before we keep diving into that. So much that you want to say, which is exciting because it does affect everyone. I just want to talk, so you've outlined why you're so passionate, and we're going to talk more about the damage soon. Let's just talk a bit about the response as well. And again, you've touched on it briefly, and I know for me, I was getting so many messages after that interview, women just calling me from everywhere, even women who are currently in a relationship with a married man, they were wanting help to get out. So I just admire their courage. But for you, obviously, family saw this. And this is a big reason why we don't speak up, because we are so concerned about the ramifications that come from family. I think even I had some of your family members hunting me down like I'd done something wrong. This is just a platform I never make anyone share. I'm here for those who want to share when they're ready. Tell us, firstly, the response of maybe his family or your wider family.
Yeah, so response from family, my family, like my blood family, so like my side, no, they came back. They were full on, very supportive, and they didn't realize the torture, like the pain that I was going through. So that interview kind of opened their eyes to what I was really going through. So they were very supportive. But my ex-in-laws, you had some that were supportive. They were on the same page. They knew exactly, what it does to families. But then there were some that were just not nice about it at all, thinking that I was the problem as well. In all those little things, one called me a coward. Coward. And you know what? I kind of felt discouraged at that point. And then it's amazing when you just stick to the word of God and you stick to, you just stay closer to God. And then I just realized, no, I'm talking about something that God is not for. Like one of the commandments is do not commit adultery. It's in Proverbs, there's so many chapters where God is warning us about infidelity, about adultery, book of Malachi. So, then I just got reminded by God, like, no, I'm doing God's will. I'm standing up for justice. I'm standing up for truth. So, you know what? I just decided if someone wants to criticize me, someone wants to judge me, someone wants to swear at me, it's okay. I'm with it, because through this, I discovered some Bible verses that all I know is I'm protected. You have Psalm 35, you have Psalm 37, Psalm 91. So I was just like, wow, I can go out. If someone swears at me, it doesn't bother me. It probably, as a human, I'll probably, be shocked or, get a bit scared. But in the long term, no, God's got my back. So, yeah, and even my ex-husband, he was really upset, thinking that I was out to destroy him or destroy his family. But I said, no, the reason why I did was just to to shed light on infidelity and what it's done. Yeah, so, but
And
the broader,
you had, you had
yeah,
told him that this is what you were going to do before you did it as well. You told him before I interviewed you last year what was happening. I don't think we realised the extent of how far and wide it would go. Hey.
yeah. So yeah, so the response, and then you had so you had negative comments, which is fine. And at the beginning when I was reading, I was like, okay, can I deal with it? But then I had to just be firm on God's word, and make sure, like, I had to change my mindset and just go back to the word of God. I'm standing up for justice. I'm standing up for truth. So if people have an opinion, that's fine. That's fine. But I'll let God deal with those that want to come against me. I'll leave it to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're about breaking a culture of silence and shame. And you always know when people are calling you names or accusing you,
Yeah.
that's the enemy trying to
Yeah, and
silence.
if I can say something, there were some women that actually questioned, why did I have to do this? And I was like, wow, and I think it's just because of that. It's just we don't talk about it. This is something. Someone actually messaged me after the interview, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Lola, what you spoke on is like a taboo in Fiji." And I was like, why? Why is it taboo? If majority of Fijians are Christians, this shouldn't be something that we should be hidden in the closet. We should be able to openly discuss this. Yeah, so for some women that ask, why did I do it? Exactly that, to shed light on infidelity and what it does to families, to children, to me, like to the victim here. So yeah, that's the main reason why I did it.
Yeah. So let's talk about your journey and how that has impacted you before we get to the kids. Because I remember again after our interview last year, you just said, "Oh, there was so much more I could have said about how it impacted you." So, I mean, 15 years living with a man who had another lover and children. Can you tell us some of your darkest moments that you experienced in that time?
Oh gosh. There was a lot of sleepless nights. There were nights where I would just cry myself out to sleep. And I don't know if I mentioned it the last interview where I came to work and my eyes were swollen and I just lied. I just lied to my bosses that I had an allergic reaction. And I wasn't myself, emotionally and even mentally. And that's why I just want to encourage people, don't date a married man. Like for me, I had to make sure I got the kids ready for school. I still had to, look after my family. But then coming to the workplace, like my mind wasn't fully here. Um, there were times when, I did say in the last interview where I just submitted wrong financials to the boss and he got really upset. He was just like, he's like, how could you get that wrong? And I remember even in a meeting, the meeting was just going on forever, but my mind just drifted to what was happening in my marriage, where when I was asked a question, I had no idea what the question was. So, another manager like stood in the gap for me and just answered the question. And then after the meeting, he just said, "Oh, are you okay?" And I just lied. I said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just tired." Um, yeah, just not thinking straight, and just being not the best mom to my children, because there were days where I would just snap at my kids, like I was just angry, and that's why I was saying it does so much damage, like emotionally, mentally. I got to a stage, I didn't mention in my last interview, I didn't. I still remember I was at a traffic lights. I think I was pregnant to number two, and my son was in the car. We were just at the traffic lights, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, what if? And there was a bus on the next set of lights, but then there was no cars in between myself and the bus. And then in my mind, I was just thinking, why don't I just, drive this car up and smash this car into the bus? And that's how crazy your mind can go. Like it really ruins your mind. But I stopped, and then I just realized, okay, God, what's happening here? But that's where I knew, I had to continue getting help. So going to counseling was so important for me. Hanging out with my connect group, we call it, the cell group. I never missed that because I just had to be surrounded by people that were believers, even though they didn't have to know my story, but just the prayer, the praise and worship that was so important to me. Attending church. So that's the scariest thing about being in this position. Like you can be suicidal. It's actually emotional abuse. That's 100% certain. yeah, it just messes up with your mind. And then you're trying to keep a straight face for your children. And then the kids were the ones that suffer because, there are days where I just mentioned before, scream at them, or days where I just don't want to do anything. And so, you miss out on doing kids' family stuff because I just don't want to do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really robs you of your time and energy, and emotional health as a mother.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's important for us, just some of the things you talked about, how you came to work and not concentrating, red eyes. Even though you lied, I just want to encourage co-workers out there. These are important signs to look for. And even just to say, hey, if something's going on, I'm here for you when you're ready to talk. I think is just, some little things that we can do in the workplace. Don't always believe
Yeah.
the lies. Especially if you
True.
see habits. I think it's so important that we just let people know that we're aware something's going on, and when you're ready, we are here.
Yeah.
Is really good. Yeah. So, well, thank the Lord you never ran into that bus and you're still here today, because
Yeah.
life is a gift and there's so much more to live. Yeah, you mentioned your children. You've got 3 children,
Yeah.
correct? To him, to the one man.
Yes, correct.
Yep. So, yeah, how did you journey with them? Or were they fully aware what was going on, or did you try and cover it up, or how did you journey?
Oh no, I protected my kids, and at the same time, I didn't want them to know the truth back then because they were kids. I wanted them just to be a kid, just not to have. I didn't want things like this to, to what's it? I didn't want them to think too much about life, stuff like this. I just wanted them to be kids, to go to school, enjoy holidays. Um, but then the youngest one, so it's 4 years since my ex-husband has visited his children. Yeah, so the youngest one did ask me, I think last year, the year before, and she said, will our dad ever visit us? Does he ever like really come again? And so I didn't know how to answer. And I said, oh, the next time he calls, you can check with him. Then, so my girls, when we were in Fiji, they met one of their brothers in Fiji, but and that's the thing that upset me was the way my ex-husband handled it. He didn't, like warn them before or tell them about it. He just like got them together, and so I think it hit the eldest son really hard. It just like, like just caught them off guard. So they kind of knew about it, but it's like they were just blocking it as well because when we would have conversations about it, it's like it was just us, the three of them. And then slowly now, since the divorce happened, like we're more open about it. So they know they have siblings. They quite, the youngest one, she said, "Oh, I'm cool with that. That I have other siblings out there." But I think what hurt them was the fact that we were divorced. When I told them that we're no longer married, we're divorced, there was just complete silence in our house, more than an hour, just complete silence. So I didn't add anything. I just said it. Then I just waited for them to come up to me and say something. Yeah, and so my son, he was just more like, yeah, didn't really want to have conversation about it. The second one just said, "Oh, that's fine, mom." And then again, that was it. But the youngest one, she you could tell she was teary. Then she went to the room for a good hour or so. Then she came out and she asked me, "Can you please explain what you just said?" So I had to explain it to her. And yeah, so she was still like, she goes, "But I don't get it. Why you still have to divorce?" And so I've scheduled them for therapy. My son thinks he doesn't have to go for therapy, but my youngest two, it's just so they can talk to the therapist in case you can't talk to me about things. So yeah, so that's they schedule for next week or the following week.
So important. They can talk through and all their emotions. Have you seen a decline in their behavior or their grades through it, or not?
No, because no, they actually did well in their grades. But the thing is, when I told them, the first thing I said was, we have to forgive. You have to forgive your dad. And then I said, he's not like a believer, so what we usually learn is like we all, there's a lot of Christians, but then you have those that are active Christians and those that are not. So I just said, he doesn't really live by the word, so we have to be forgiving. I said, it's okay to be upset, but I just told them, you have to forgive, because not it can affect us. So I think they've taken that on board really well. But again, that's why for me the therapy is really important, because I don't want to miss something, and then something tragic happens in the end. But I'm glad, like, conversations my kids have with their friends, so their friends tell their parents, and then it comes back to me. So then I know, okay, this is some area that I have to talk about. So my second one, she was telling a friend, oh, you do realize I have siblings in Fiji. And so her friend told her mom, and then the mom came back to me. So I just, tried to encourage them to be forgiving, because that's what we are, to be forgiving, but to also to understand that what happened is not the way we should do marriage. Uh, so the girls, I don't think they really understand it fully, but I just said how it happened. That's not the way God wants it, but we have to also be forgiving. Yeah, so that's where we're at with our children at the moment.
So the divorce came through last year. How have you been? How have you felt since?
Oh my gosh. So, and this is why I said, infidelity is just not cool at all. Um, yeah, so we divorced. I got served in February. I got served in Feb, and then the divorce came through in April. So it takes 2 months, and then the final divorce papers were actually handed out in April. So here's the thing: you think you have a ex-husband that is showing and acting like he wants to be with someone, divorces me, but then after the divorce, he still wants me to be part of his life. And that's what I struggled with. That's why I couldn't do an interview with you, because I just knew it wasn't right. Yeah, so he would still call. And the reason why I allowed the calls was because the only way he would talk a lot to his kids was through me. So if I accepted the call, and then I knew his kids, they were having good conversations with the children. So I was entertaining that. But then our conversation started going back to like we were husband and wife again. And I remember like drawing the line. I said, this needs to stop. Um, and he goes, oh, I don't see any problem with it. So, and then he got to a stage where I was entertaining it again. And then I was like, no, this really needs to stop. I don't want to be classified as the other woman. I said, no, I'm not doing life like that. So he would just casually say, I don't see any problem with it. And he actually said this, he still loves me. And then he said, oh, we're soulmates. So I was just like, oh my gosh, it was quite depressing. So every time I would say, you need to stop, but he would still call. And it was not till I met this other friend, because of that, my last interview, she was able to open up about her story, similar story to mine. But the only thing is with her was once she came out of that bad relationship, because she hadn't healed completely, she went into another bad relationship, and she said something, and it just triggered something in me. She goes, Lola, these kind of relationships, and she used the F word. She just said, it F's with your mind. When she said it, and that's exactly what I was going through. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, this is why, I'm still probably entertaining him, because, I'm just letting him get to my mind. And I think I was still in denial. I didn't want to, because he was my ex-husband and because he was the father of my children, I didn't want to classify him as a narcissist, or I didn't want to call our relationship like a toxic one. So that took a while. So it was probably like August, September. The moment I accepted the fact that, no, this person is toxic, and I was this person is a narcissist, and I was in a toxic relationship. Oh my gosh. Once I accepted that, it was so easy just to set the boundary and to say stop. And then he knew I had to block him on WhatsApp. And then I left Messenger open because we have a family chat group there. So I just left that open. And I'll just give you another example. You know how we had the ECS celebrations last year? So no one knew I was coming, only my sister, because I asked her to look after my kids. And then, so my girls knew about it. So somehow he had called them, and one of them said, "Oh, mom's going for her school reunion, her school celebrations." And then I get a message from him, and he said, "Oh, I'll be in Fiji around that time." He doesn't work. He's currently based in another country. He said, "I'll be in Fiji around that time, so I'd really like if we could meet up." And I said, "No." I said, "If your new partner, your new wife is okay with it, I'll be okay with it. But apart from that, no." And he goes, "There's nothing wrong for us to meet up, just coffee, just conversation." And I said, "No." But yeah, I got too busy at work, so I couldn't come over for the celebrations.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't see you there.
What's that?
I was going to say, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, but I just thank
Oh,
Jesus because, like I'm just thinking, like I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like a stalker again. Like if I was in Fiji, I think I would be like looking behind my back, if he's gonna disappear or something. Yeah. So I'm glad I got caught up with work, and so I couldn't come over for the celebrations.
yeah. So there's a real need to have some strong boundaries in place.
Yeah, I think that was my weakness too, where I just wasn't having like putting a stop. And then just little casual things where he was really treating me like a wife, is in he would just once he just called and said, "Oh, could you get me an iPhone?" And I said, "Sorry, I'm not getting you an iPhone." And so he said, "No, you buy it and then I'll pay you back." I mean, this is just an example of like how casual he was about the whole thing. And I said, "No." And so, sorry, I'm going to be in detail here. So while I was at work, I got a notification on my phone. So he deposited money in my account for his iPhone. And then all of a sudden the messages started coming. "Can you make sure you go and get it on this day? And can you make sure you DHL?" And I'm just thinking, so I called him and I just said, "Look, you're no longer married to me, so you don't tell me what to do." I just put my foot down. So he kind of got the message, and then I waited for the weekend, and then I had time. I went bought his the iPhone, and I actually just gave it to a friend to take it over. I didn't put it through DHL, like exactly the way he wanted. Yeah, and then he thanked me as if I bought it for him. He said, "Oh, thank you for my iPhone." I was like, no, I didn't buy anything. That was your money." I don't know. It just played with my mind. But I think I had the boundaries set. And then the last, and I really told him, you need to stop this. He called on Christmas Eve, and I didn't answer. And I just said, "Just stick to the group chat. If you want to call, stick to the group chat." But he didn't even call the kids on Christmas Day. And I think that's a frustrating part. These kids know their dad, and then you have a dad that it's like he's just like trying to disown them. That's his actions speak that. And then our last encounter was last month around the 17th, 18th. Yeah, so sorry, I'm going to just put it out there because this is what I had to deal with after the divorce. He just called out of the blue and just said, along the lines like, if I was 100% sure I was over him. And, then he was trying to sweet talk me, he was really intimate, like his conversations. That's the only conversations you have with your husband or your wife, like to the extent of like saying like, "What bra are you wearing?" And like really being intimate. He even went to the extent of saying, "What happened if we were in the same room together? No one else. What do you think is going to happen?" And I was just like, "You need to stop." And that's where, I mentioned while we were, before we started the interview. And that's, I got so frustrated. I said, "You really need to stop this call, stop this nonsense." And then I just said, "You need to remember who you work for, because you work for United Nations." And that's where he got really angry with me. And I said, "Yeah, because United Nations is all about women empowerment, about human rights, about humanity. And what you're doing is actually the opposite of what that organization stands for." So as soon as I said that, bang, he hasn't called me, messaged me again. But he turned the tables on me and he just said, "I'm the toxic person for
Yeah,
bringing that up." Yeah.
gaslighting when they turn the tables on you. Is he still with the other woman?
Yes.
Okay, and
Definitely, yeah.
so nothing's changed in his life.
What's that, sorry?
Nothing's changed in his life then.
Yeah, and just as his ex-wife, as the mother of his children, after that conversation, I said, "You really need help. This is not right. This is not normal. You need help." I mean, for you wanting to commit to someone else, and then that's the kind of conversation you're having with me, that's not acceptable. Yeah.
So this is, I mean, this is really important stuff for women, because quite often we finish one relationship, you know, and it might have been a really harmful one where he cheated, but then 2 seconds later we're back with him, or we bounce into another relationship. So for you, it's important that as you're learning to have those boundaries so that you can have space to heal.
Yeah.
Space to heal. Do you feel like you've healed much in the last year?
Oh my gosh. When I said earlier, once I accepted the fact that, it was a toxic relationship and I was married to a narcissist, you have no idea the freedom I felt. I just felt so much freedom. That was the first time for me to be actually free from my ex-husband. Because after the divorce, he was still very much present in my life, up to, and then, but the moment I accepted that it was toxic and he's a narcissist, that was it. Just to feel that freedom felt so good. And, I want to encourage women, if you're still hanging or you're still being obedient to your ex-husbands, you need that freedom. God gave us that freedom. And because I know with that freedom, you will flourish and will be the best person we could ever be and who God created us to be. And that's why I just want to encourage women, you don't have to, you don't owe your ex-husband anything. Really, you don't. We don't. Even though we share children, but I know I don't owe him anything. But just to feel that freedom, oh gosh, it was so powerful.
Yeah, no, it's truth that sets us free. And sometimes we're scared to acknowledge that I was in a toxic or abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to think I was that woman, but it's freedom to come to that, isn't it? So where to from here for you, Lola?
Oh, I think just more conversations. Like we should continue having conversations about infidelity and adultery, because it, as I said before, it damages people. And I'll just give you an example. Like sometimes when someone says, "Oh, that guy's cheating," but you mentioned in the organization, if you see someone that's not doing well, ask the question. Then you have those that say, "Oh, it's a personal matter, it's a private matter. We shouldn't get involved." But I want to encourage people. We have to change that mindset. So, for example, like when my husband, when I was still married to my ex-husband, when I came into work, I wasn't giving my 100% to this company, but yet my boss was still paying me. And I'll just give so that's an example. And like you look at if a husband is cheating on his wife, and just imagine if the wife's a teacher or a nurse, and she goes to school and she's not there 100% teaching her kids, not giving her best to her children, who suffers the most apart from her and her family? It's the students. They're not receiving the best classes from their teacher, or the nurse. She's not giving the best care to the patient. So I think we need to stop that saying, it's personal, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. I don't know, did I mention about the police officer that was cheating on his wife? And that video went viral. Again, we don't know what the wife's going to go through. She'll be walking into her workplace, so heartbroken. She won't give her 100% to that workplace, to her family. And I wanted to raise a point here. An example is like, so my ex-husband, he works for United Nations, and it's all about humanity, equality. So the way his personal life doesn't reflect the organization he works for. And for me, that's hypocrisy. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. That should be raised, that should be looked at into. You look at the police officer, he's there to look after the community, but he's destroying his marriage. And, that's a bad example, another example of hypocrisy. And when you look at these two roles, I know I'm going to get into, some people might not even like what I'm saying here. Both these organizations, you have the police officer, his wage, he gets paid by taxpayers, yeah? And, my ex-husband, his wage comes from foreign funding, from foreign governments. And who pays taxes? The individual, a personal life. So that's why when people say it's personal, no, we need to stop that, because it's a personal life that pays taxes, pays income taxes. It's a personal life that buys goods and services. It's a personal life that helps run an organization. So I think it's really important to never go there and say, "Oh, it's a personal matter, we shouldn't deal with it." No, we should deal with it, because each person makes up society. And, and if everyone's broken, then our society is broken. So
Yeah.
we need to help each other, and it should be like it should be looked into more.
We've got to help each other do better. I think, yes, definitely. And I know there'll be people thinking, oh, this is private matters. It's got nothing to do with
Yeah,
us. But as you said, we are linked and it does affect. And yeah, especially if they're with your husband, that very much affects you. So, Lola, I love your courage. I just want to end with one thing because yes, we've got to actually start helping our children. Your husband doesn't just start cheating at the age of 21 or wherever he meets you. This is stuff that begins in our childhood and our teenage years, whether it's through looking at pornography. Are we teaching our kids what healthy relationships look like, what marriage looks like? Are we
yeah,
teaching them to discern the red flags, the green flags, how to just be a healthy child? And it was beautiful. I interviewed, got another podcast coming out with Paul Morrow, who lives in Fiji, and he runs a lot of father-daughter camps, and he's doing all he can to help fathers be better fathers and
yeah,
impact. So we've got to start at that age because all this stuff doesn't break out in our 20s and 30s. It's been sitting there.
yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
And something I got negative feedback about in the last interview was it seemed like I was blaming my ex-husband's upbringing, but I want to just share. I think our surroundings matter as a childhood, like our family surroundings, because I come from a big family. My dad's a family of 10, my mom's a family of 10. So when we had family gatherings, so my dad he was like number 6 or 7. So when we were born, we had cousins that were already in high school. So growing up, when we had family functions and they would drink, I used to see them drink. And I remember as a kid, so this is how powerful our surroundings, our families matter. I remember as a kid, I saw that and I was like, I can't wait to be an adult so I could drink with them. And so that was my mission. Like just growing up, that's all I wanted to do was just to have my first drink and drink with them. Um, and also you mentioned in the last interview, what was my goal as a husband? And because I wasn't planted in the word of God, I remember all I wanted to find in a man was he had to be career minded, nothing else. I only had that one box. So when I met my ex-husband, he had that. I knew he was career focused. So that was a red flag. That was a green flag to me. And I think what topped it off, where it was a bonus to me, why I said, oh my gosh, this is perfect, because he drank. And like for me, that was just exactly what I wanted. So I want people to understand, no, our upbringing matters. And we as parents, we need to make sure we bring up our kids in a good environment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That encourages good, wise choices.
Yes.
Well, Lola, thank you. I'm sure this conversation is not finished. I just want to say again, if you're listening today and you're currently in a relationship with a married man or woman that you shouldn't be, it's time to finish that. They're not your spouse. They're not yours. Reach out to me. We are not here judging. We are here to help and to create just a greater society, because strong marriages create strong children.
Yeah, that's true.
Create strong societies, and at the moment our nations are falling apart because of the brokenness of families. So we love you, and we're here to help and support. So thank you again, Lola, very much, and keep speaking out, and I'm sure we'll chat again sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Letitia, and thank you for this amazing platform.
My pleasure.
Naka.